And I think we've been doing it now for 6 or 7 years. It measures not only satisfaction, but it gathers operational suggestions and changes. What I tell our team is, just as I heard this morning, the whole reason I come to work is so Tom can go hunt. And then on the other side, I hear Tom's the greatest boss in the world. So I take those two things and I throw them out, and then I focus on what's in the gut, what's in the middle of that survey, what can I do with the valuable information, and how can our team do it? And this evaluates somewhat a 360 situation all the way down to our frontline supervisors. And then the most important thing that we clearly learned after the first and second year is you have to take action, and you have to report on the action that you're taking. You can't do everything that everybody asks you to do, that's impossible. But if they see that you're doing something, today I think we get like a 97% answer to, do you believe the survey is of value, and have you seen action being taken? And we're in the high 90s. When we first started, it was like 50%. So if you do those things and you move the needle, we're always trying to move the needle, I think that's, some of your best consultants are within your team.
So, Rich, talk a little bit about maybe your management style. A couple folks mentioned something about leadership styles, management styles. Everybody has a different way of approaching that. How do you kind of define how you manage?
Once again, I try to get a lot of employee buy-in when we have an opportunity or a problem in front of us. Usually I will go and present the problem to them, or they present it to me, and we'll try to come up with a solution. I very often try not to be the one to give the solution. I try to give the tools in front of them to have the solution. If it's an irrigation problem in the field with the irrigation tech, if he's on his first 48 zone irrigation system, I do not go out there the first phone call. I let them go out there, I let them try to solve it, talk to me on the phone, and solve it that way. If it's, tree identification or pest identification or something, before we get the arborists out there, we're not arborists, we try to identify it with the folks back into the garden center. We'll go in and talk with Bill at the garden center. They'll come to me, I go to Bill, my partner, because he's the horticulturalist in training and background there. We also have, I'm a landscape architect and designer there, so if there's technical problems grading, sure, I'll be more than happy to help them with it, but if we're trying to set a 3% grade, 5% grade, or whatever, I don't talk to them about setting a grade until they come to me with, it's 500 feet long, the top of the wall says it's this on top of the plan, and the elevation for the patios up here, what do we do? And so I try to let them present what the details are, and then we work out the solutions, and that's the way the people in the past that I worked with have helped me do it best. So I try to make it a learning experience, because what I found out is if I teach them to do that, I don't get that phone call the next time. And if I'm always running to supervisor number one's problem or issue of the day, I have 5 supervisors in construction normally, as well as a mow crew, irrigation crew, garden crew. I'm just solving problems, and that's not my goal or my task or what I want to do.
Yeah, so if you want a takeaway, that's one. That's a good one right there. A lot of the stuff you've heard is good stuff, but letting people get down the road on their own, you're training them to basically start doing their job. You want them to do it in the first place, right? And get you out of there. So, Scott, I'll ask you a question. Wondering, number one, if you have a similar approach to things, and if so, what happens when they screw it up?
Well, that sucks.
Because they will.
They will. They
let them go, right, Rich? They're going to screw it up.
Without a doubt, that's part of the learning curve that everybody has to go through. I have 30-some years of experience in this industry, and I started out building these things, and I became very efficient and effective in my approach to things. And probably the hardest thing for me to do was let go of the reins and let my team flounder on some days when I'm just sitting there, that's why I don't have any hair, by the way, and saying, you know, let's figure this out. I think the thing that I've learned is that I need to hire good people, and I know that I trust the people that I hire because I take the time and care about each my employees individually. I give them opportunities to make mistakes, and when they make the mistakes, they're expected to, with help, go back and find better solutions when needed. I also have I learned to be available for my team in critical points of a project when I have an understanding. We do a lot of big boulder work and things like that. And I have a certain aesthetic that I have an expectation of. I want to be there for some parts of the installation of my project because I care about what the final outcome is going to look like. But I've had a handful of my guys now for 9 years. I've had my own company for 9 years now, and some of them have been with me. They can do that job better than I could, but it took me years to get them up to speed where when those critical points are happening, they go in my place now. So it's been time, it's been training, it's been care, it's been a lot of repeat work sometimes to get it right, but now they get it and they love it when they see an award on the wall of the project that they built.
Okay, so let's kind of go forward a little bit, maybe something a little bit different, John. So we all have tendencies, right? So the truth is, this business attracts autocratic boneheads, of which I'm one. We're control freaks. We like to know where everything's going, what is happening. So we have to work against tendency. So it seems like there's a lot of people sort of in this industry that kind of have similar tendencies. Is there anybody else there that just, that's it, you raise your hand. So talk about, you know, the tendency, kind of back to this idea of leadership styles and how you manage things. And how do you determine what your tendency is and then how to work against those things that maybe are going to work against you?
For me, management style has been an ever-growing process or ever-changing for me. I feel that every year I get to be a better manager and total control freak. 10 years, I had to have my hands in everything. I mean, somebody walked through the office talking about a project or a problem, and I'm up out of my chair and I'm, through the door, and I'm fixing it for them. And I just constantly go through that. To jump back to what Rich was saying about letting people gather the information and try to come back with some solutions has worked well for me over the last 5 years. And also empowering people to make decisions. When you're a control freak, you tend to shut them off, and now they're afraid to make a decision because you weren't there to make it for them, or at least nod your head when they were making it.
So at times it's better to lead by asking questions or giving answers.
Well, I think we all know what the textbook's going to tell us. And the textbook's going to tell us it's better to lead by asking questions, which is really hard for a control freak situation, I think. I do believe that when you get to the point that you realize you're not the only person that can do every job, and truly realize that, and you're not the only person that can be the best at a job, and we all say that's really easy to do, but practicing it is a different area. Once you get to that point, and you start to trust people, and then you have the common thing you're going to hear about having a safe work environment and safe zones where people are able and willing to talk up, and where people are willing to make those mistakes, and they know they're not going to be hung out to dry because of it. I think that changes that. So sitting there quiet and not saying anything oftentimes is far more impactful to your team than asking a question or leading with an answer. And so for me, that's probably the thing that I have to practice the most is, sitting on my hands and sitting on my mouth. You do a lot more good when you hear more than when you speak more, and so I think that's certainly critically important. And I compliment John because I've seen what's happened in the last 5 years since we've known each other and worked on different projects and various things, and without a doubt, I think it's a hard process to go through, especially when families involved. It's extremely difficult. So.
Especially when your wife's involved.
Yeah, I just know the boys. I didn't even know about the other side, so don't call me on that one. I have no experience, but there was one area that I think I would just add, and I think you hear us talk a little bit about how do you allow people to move up. I think one of the key things that we talk a lot about, and my team gets tired of hearing it from me, is we use VST. And I've got a handout that we're going to give you at the end, and we have a pyramid that is vision, strategy, and tactics. And on that pyramid are the tasks associated with vision, the tasks associated with strategy, and the tasks associated with tactical execution. And on the axis next to it is all the different job descriptions. And our team gets an understanding of when you're in your role or when you're trying to move to your next role, how much of your time should be spent in those different categories. So if we talk about a lawn care technician, probably 90% of his day is going to be fixed around what? Tactical execution. He's going to have some strategy associated with it because he might have 25 customers to visit. He's got some call first in there. He's got to work around traffic. Might have to sneak off to the dentist during the day. So there's some strategy in his day, but the bulk of it is tactical, right? Well, if you're a supervisor, where do you fit in there? And I think the key is we can sit here and talk about moving to the next level of your business. But if you don't know what those tasks are that you should be spending your time on to get to that next level, you can talk about it all you want, but you got to make sure you know what that means. And so if it's talking about the vision or the strategy, John talks about we may just be a snow removal company, in the next 3 to 5 years. He better be spending a fair amount of his time thinking about what that really means. And that's what his team should be allowing him to do. So, I think that vision, strategy, tactics, and knowing what it means and where your time should be spent is real critical in trying to get to that next level that we sort of heard everybody ask about. So.
Okay. So, Rich, you've mentioned a lot of things that count around people, okay? And obviously we're a people business, a service business. Tell me the difference in your mind between good people and the right people, or is there a difference?
I'd say that, the good person is the person who shows up and works from 7 to 5, but they don't show up at 6:45. They don't stay till 5:15 to get it done. The right person for me is that person that spends a little extra time and comes to me in the morning presenting the solution of the problem they had the day before and goes home and thinks about it. So they're also the person that comes into me and wants to know how to do the paperwork or something weird like that. My right-hand guy right now, Chris, he was going to school in Alabama for a degree in architecture. Worked for a summer up in Vail with me, stayed the next summer and said, you know what, I'm not going to go architecture anymore. I want to go in the landscape business. I want to be your office manager. I was hired that position. He helped me with the books and QuickBooks, and we learned it together through there. So it's the right person is the person that wants to help themselves grow within Landscape Technology Group, but also the industry. And that's the type of person I try to hire. I work really hard doing internship programs every year. That interns that have got Louisiana, Alabama, University of New Hampshire, Boston University, Utah, BYU, Cal Poly, and the amount of people that have come and now search out Landscape Technology Group from a previous student working with us is really neat and interesting through there. So the right person is somebody who wants to grow, and I feel I'm that company to let them grow, but also stay beyond me at the right time too.
So, kind of staying on that same line, Scott, talking about people. So as your company has grown, you were the only employee, so now I don't know how many employees you have, a bunch. How does the communication strategy change? How critical is the communication? Make sure everybody understands what's going on. What do you communicate? I'm just curious, kind of how you look at communication.
Communication has always been probably one of the keys to the success of any organization, whether it's the flow and having a flow chart to know who is accountable to whom and what the chain of that communication wants to be, to having, like you said, the open mind or safe places and an open door policy within our organization where I'm always available to any of our team members, whether it's one of my leadership staff, or if it's the laborer who I make it a priority to know each of them and to be able to have some kind of knowledge and relationship. I have 40 employees, and so it's not huge. It's like getting to know each of you all in this room. It's not overwhelming. Tom, it would be a lot more difficult for you to be able to go out and have 17 different Chris's. I have 4, and it's hard enough to distinguish them sometimes, right? And so, it can be a challenge, but I think it's really, in a company of my size, an important piece to have that familiar type of relationship. And I like to have that trust level that I think is an important part of the buy-in to the vision of the company. And if somebody, I like to think that our culture within our organization is one that is where our team can engage with all different levels of our leadership, and having the buy-in at different levels, whether it's in a supervisor's level or a operations manager's level or a crew leader's level. All of these guys have to be able to be safe and have the trust that what they bring to the table is on.
So, John, talk a little bit more about why you're thinking about it. I'll tell you guys a quick story. So, with our company, we have offices in Colorado, Utah, and California. And I was out on a job, it's probably been a year and a half ago. There's a gentleman there running the job. We're doing some asphalt work, and I'm chatting with him. I've never met him before. He's a 3rd-generation asphalt guy, which I thought was kind of cool in itself. His grandfather and his father both paved, as he put it, half of Northern California. I said, yeah, Northern California, where? He said, Petaluma. I said, yeah, I know where Petaluma. I go by there all the time. I said, you go out there? I said, yeah. I go to our offices out there. And he said, we have offices in California? He went, get it. This guy doesn't even know we have 5 offices in California. How can this happen? And that's the reason I asked the question. I think the communication piece is significant. And the larger you grow and the more you get out of the field, the harder it becomes. So John, talk a little bit more about maybe how you guys are structuring communication in your business.
Communication just in general is probably the most important piece of our business. It affects so many things. We communicate weekly meetings with the front line. Sometimes it's more than that before storms, building up for a snow event and then after a snow event. We have all of our hand shoulders in there. We're asking them, what went wrong, what went well, tell us about the storm, They may have only been out 4 hours, but that sense of team building that they pull out of that, knowing that everybody in the company cares about how that storm went for them, what they need, what the site needs, what we need to share with the property manager. Those little things, like I say, are just such a team building event that they don't even know they're attending. Beyond that, being able to communicate the level of service that each site, each property is going to receive. And think about the ins and outs about the company, things that the people don't even know that we offer, we do, or the amount of additional properties they never see. We'll handle 60-some commercial properties. Our employees will only see 4 to 8 acres of storm. So sharing that information with them, sharing with them the locations of all these properties and property managers and reserves. I can't elaborate on communication.
So interesting, both of them said it's about the most important thing they do in the business. Talk a little bit more about
It breaks away so easily.
different challenges with 250 employees.
You know, we talk about, can you have too many meetings? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Your meetings have to have purpose, they have to have clarity, people have to understand. You know, it's sort of like, one of the things we do is, as an example right now in this environment, this is sort of a giving of information situation, right? And so oftentimes we'll go to our meetings, we'll say, hey, today's meeting's not gonna be a two-way meeting, and we'll set that expectation on the front end, because otherwise people wanna talk, and you don't really give them an opportunity to talk because you're dropping stuff on them. Set that expectation so they know that on the front end, so they don't walk away frustrated. You know, and so what we clearly have, you know, there's Death by Meetings is a great book out there. If you haven't read it, you know, it'll kill you if you're a big meeting person initially. But we have lots of meetings. I can tell you it's pretty exciting when, you know, you have people who after a period of time come to the company and go, I know more about your company than the company I left that I worked for 10 years and I've only been here a year. And that's really neat. I think it confirms the fact that share that information with them, you know, set that time aside and understand that. So we do a tremendous amount of communication, but we try to make sure that every meeting we have has some form of definitive purpose or some form of at least an outline. The meeting might not have any purpose, but at least if everybody comes to that, you go, hey, you know, this one's just a brainstorming one. We're just going to throw stuff up on the wall, see what sticks, write it down, get back to you on it. So I think that's important. You know, the other thing that we have, and you know, this is Rudy Giuliani's got a great book on what happened after 9/11, and he talks about honest truths. And I think, you know, our industry, we were talking about it yesterday. We're having our potluck on Friday, which is sort of our annual, you know, past, present, future type review, state of the company situation. And I don't know if anybody saw, you know, Tim Allen and Santa Claus over Christmas and Mother Nature standing out there. And I was like, you know, we need to have Mother Nature standing in the corner. Because this year, Mother Nature did more to us at the wrong time than we ever have had happen in probably my total career. I see Hans shaking his head, so at least I get some confirmation. 8 snowstorms, 8 weeks in a row on Tuesday, starting March 2nd. I mean, it raises the hair on my arms. Financially and performance-wise, we are in the worst situation we have been in a company in our history since I've been at the company. Now, what does that mean to us? We're back here, we're on the top, and you're on the top of your company, you're freaking out. What did it mean to those team members who are getting 10 hours of work a week? You know, a lot of the guys in the snow business I know never really got to move much snow because it really didn't amount to much. You might have did some ice work, some sand work. You know, so we talk about honest truths, which comes out of this book, and we really try to communicate to people, hey, this is where we see things, this is what's going on. For the first time in our history, because of that situation, what we heard from people is, we're not making our bills. You know, we've always had a rule. We're not a payday Friday business. We just can't be. Because, you know, I've had enough of that back up over my 30 years in being in business. But for the first time, we offered draws against pay, you know, to try to retain people and help them get through this situation. Now, thank goodness we had the reserves on hand to get us through the situations. But, so I think honest truths is really important when you communicate to people. You know, knowing what the purpose of your meetings are, you know, and letting people know that helps you get through that communication situation. But yeah, we definitely have lots of meetings at our organizations.
Okay, so you talk about honest truths. I have a friend who's a CEO of a very large company, international company, and he always tells his people, facts are our friends. And it's interesting, a lot of times we don't want to deal with the facts. We would rather make assumptions. And if I asked you guys, are you making money on this, that, or the other? How many of you could give me a spreadsheet that proved it? Or how many of you would say, Intuitively, I'm pretty sure we are because I got money left, right? Or my cash flow is fine, but if it stops, I got a problem. So that idea of facts and honest truths, I think is an interesting thing. So Rich, let's go kind of next level. You and I were having this conversation out of the lobby a little while ago. We were talking about this idea of strategic planning, budget, job costing, understanding how all those things make a difference, accountability. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think those are tools. If you want to talk about tools to help you move out of the field, you have to develop tools for people to use, right? So talk a little bit about that.
I guess it's '98 when I started Landscape Technology Group. You know, I knew landscape, but I knew horticulture, but I didn't really know a lot about business. I was involved in ALCC, was on the board through then and on a bunch of different committees. But what I did realize at that time, whenever you talk to people and you're starting up a business, you better know your banker, you better know your lawyer, you got an advisor. So we were working with a advisor with the ALCC, and I had that person come and help me on the business end. It was really interesting because what we started to do, you know, the first meeting was, okay, Rich, you're a person of one. You just started up your business. How much money can you possibly make this year? I don't know. Well, what are you going to charge an hour? Well, I don't know. Well, how many hours are you going to work? Well, I don't know. He goes, tell me, you work 2,000 hours? You charge 45 bucks? 90 grand, that's it. Or you're going to go and sell materials too. I guess I can. You make 20% off your materials? 10% off your materials? 40% off your materials? Well, if I work $90,000 in income, but I sell $100,000 to install, and I'm making 50% cost of goods, that's another 50 grand. You want to be in the maintenance business? Construction business. Construction sounded great then because I was making more money. And all of a sudden, no, maintenance, when you start to look at different divisions, gets some pretty good bucks too, when you're looking at different levels. But what he helped me do was to form budgets, not only for then a construction division, based on the amount of people you'll have working with me, but also a maintenance division, how many lawns are going to mow, how many, hours are they going to work, can they do that many square feet in 1 week physically. We broke down all these different scenarios to 3 different scenarios. The ideal scenario, the mediocre scenario, and the worst case scenario. I have to say, I only had to work off the worst case scenarios even as I was growing the last 2 or 3 years. We were working off of growth for a long period of time, and it was fun. And that's the other thing we were talking about out there, is I had a lot of fun my first 10 years in business. The last 3 just sucked. But I knew they were coming as soon as they were coming. With all the spreadsheets we had just set up, all of a sudden you have 4 people on a crew making income, and that goes down to 3. Can you afford your Bobcat anymore? It's only sitting half the time. Can you afford buying the aerator if you're only aerating 10 days a year, or you want to rent it? And we just had all these neat conversations. And I was fortunate that this advisor, I was up in Aspen at the time, and he'd come up out of Denver and spend the weekend with us. So we'd work all night long. I've got to pick up my kids out of school here, sorry. It's my alarm usually to do that. So we would come up and we'd work on Friday and Saturday nights, but on Saturday days we'd go on a hike somewhere and just talk about spending personal time and what you want to do too. So it's just kind of interesting if you get the right advisor and you go through several of them like you're saying, if you get the right one, they help you figure out your business, they help you figure out your personal end a little bit as well. But if you don't know where your numbers are gonna be or could be, that's when you just have to take a step back, and that's the value of the planning and budgeting, and where things can go very right, and where things can start to go off track. And that's when you have your annual meetings, or monthly meetings, or weekly meetings, of just how did we do this week? Could we have done better, or did we miss the target? And it's a lot of review, but if you don't know where it is to start with, you're just going down a wrong trail and you don't even